The story begins with the main character's mother arriving home in a carriage. After getting out, the woman immediately called out to her daughter to come out at once, but her shouts went unheard as the girl was fast asleep on the windowsill. So, the woman shouted, asking if the girl could hear her. The heroine heard nothing until the woman screamed her name, Melody. Only then did she snap awake and realize someone was calling for her. After that, the things the main character's mother had bought were hauled into the house. The girl saw them, and there was a literally countless number of items. Her mother told Melody to just look at it all. It turned out that on her way back from the auction, she had come across a carriage filled with all of this. So, it seemed her mother was lucky today. And all this was surely because these were all items from capital aristocrats. Behind this mountain of things, the main character saw a girl sitting on a small chair. The mother noticed her daughter looked shocked and asked what was wrong with Melody's face. She wondered if she wasn't happy about this. The main character, in turn, thought that this was probably the most hopeless end. It turned out she had been reborn into the world of a novel, in the body of a merchant's daughter during her 11th spring. So, it seemed the first chapter of that novel, which she would have preferred not to see, was beginning right after meeting this girl who was now in their house. The woman went upstairs and told her daughter that she could sell all this, buy fabric, and order herself a new dress. Also, if she fancied anything, she would allow her to keep it, and she asked what she thought of such an offer. The girl immediately asked if her mother didn't think it was dangerous to keep items from capital aristocrats. The woman declared that these nobles had mountains of such things piled up to the ceiling everywhere. But Melody noted that they were surely looking for their daughter. The woman looked at her and said you couldn't know that for sure. Then she smiled and added that nobles only knew how to multiply. They probably had so many children they couldn't even remember them all. So in any case, she was going to leave the girl in this room, so enough of this nonsense. The daughter had no choice but to agree. At that very moment, she reflected that when she was 5, she began remembering her past life. Back then, the girl thought she had a terrible dream and went to her mother, telling her about it. At first, she didn't realize it wasn't just a dream and she was scared. So, after waking up, she cried for a long time. She was completely alone in this world where no one smiled. When the daughter approached her mother, she pushed her away and said she didn't know what was wrong with her, but she was busy and the girl was irritating her. Fortunately, the heroine gradually adapted to such a life, all thanks to realizing that her dreams were actually memories of her past life. After some time, when she turned 10, the fragmented memories in her head began forming a complete picture. Literally every night, the heroine revisited her memories as if reading a novel. In her past life, she was a simple 15-year-old girl, not an adult. She was a child in a family with many money problems. In her memories, she only watched other peers and adults. Perhaps that's why her gaze was always fixed on her old shoes. The girl just really wanted someone to be nearby and comfort her. She always felt lonely because there was no one around, and for her, this was utterly unbearable. However, in her memories, there was always one joyful girl, and she read about her as if from a book. The heroine took it for granted that this girl really loved to read. It was another story called The Duke Had 3 Sons and 1 Daughter. The girl then thought, couldn't the author have given him a less cliché title? That very story began with a crisis and ended with a beautiful finale. The heroine quickly grew to love the whole story, so she experienced the same feelings as in her past life. The girl thought that all the main characters were truly wonderful. The main heroine's childhood was described especially well. When she was just 5 years old, she lost her mother in an accident. A dishonest merchant woman and her daughter became the first villains to appear in the story. They were the ones who kidnapped and kept the little main heroine locked up. These villains played a very important role in Loretta's life. They evoked readers' hatred towards them, as well as love for the main heroine. It turned out that by the end of the very first chapter, they were sentenced to death thanks to the Grand Duke from the capital. It didn't take long to read the story. When the heroine found herself in this world, she saw a news article and thought how everything could be exactly the same. It turned out the beginning of the novel she loved to read coincided with what was written in the newspaper. Literally everything matched. the location name, the family name, and even her name. The daughter of the slave traders who tormented the main heroine was caught by the Duke, and her name was Melody. That's why the main character begged her mother not to get involved in this business. The woman asked her what she was talking about. She didn't want to hear any more about it, as they could earn a lot of money from this. But the daughter, with tears in her eyes, continued to plead, saying that if they got involved with slave trading, they would have huge problems. The mother declared that she was being really noisy, and if she was going to continue like this, she should just leave her house. At that moment, the main character thought that even if she couldn't convince her mother to abandon this terrible idea, she still had a way to save herself in this situation. The girl thought she could avoid death by becoming friends with the main heroine of this novel. At first glance, it didn't seem difficult, but there was still a problem. At that moment, the woman approached and addressed Melody. She asked if she hadn't told the girl to just not let that little one die. She also noted that she had brought her to the best place. It would be much worse elsewhere. She wanted to say something else, but then turned and told her to forget it. After all, this girl should be grateful, at the very least, that she had given her a blanket. She and the heroine then looked at the frightened girl wrapped in a blanket, and she felt very sad about it all. She apologized to the girl and said she had seen a pendant with an inscription of her name. She said it was writ Loretta and asked if that was really her name. Her interlocutor didn't answer and only made a strange sound before hiding under the blanket. The heroine thought she was probably too frightened and had had enough for today. After that, Melody placed a tray with food on the floor. She told the girl she was leaving the soup here and wanted her to eat. Then she left the room and hid to watch. She thought the girl really needed to eat at least a little. After a while, Loretta emerged from under the blanket and looked at the food left for her. Then, seeing no one was in the room, she crawled to the food and wanted to eat. The heroine watched and thought, thank goodness, she would eat. But what if Loretta noticed her and got scared? The girl thought she had been discovered, so it seemed it was still very difficult to get close to her. After some time, night fell, and the main character took the girl to her room. Melody told her it would be fine if she slept in her bed. She would sleep better here than in that hard chair her mother had brought. The girl didn't answer, and the heroine asked if she was okay. But Loretta still didn't answer and just slowly went to the bed to lie down. The heroine thought her heart was bleeding. After all, this girl was such a tiny little one, and why did she have to end up in this situation? Then Melody saw the girl get into bed with tears in her eyes. She reached out her hand to her and wanted to ask if she was okay. But she suddenly stopped, thinking that for Loretta right now, she was just a villainess. The next day, the main character brought drinks for herself and her new friend she wanted to make. She looked at the girl and was a little surprised by what she saw. It was because Loretta was sitting opposite her and wasn't running away or hiding. The girl thought joyfully, had she started to trust her? Suddenly, the mother called out to her daughter, telling Melody to come to her immediately. The heroine placed the glass with the drink on the table and said the milk was a little hot, so she should blow on it before drinking. After that, she headed towards the exit and asked her mother if she had called for her. Some time later, Melody was in a room, looking out the window. She saw it was very cloudy outside and hoped there wouldn't be any thunder that day. As she was thinking this, she heard a knock on the door of the room she was in. So, the girl went and opened it, noticing Loretta was there. The heroine said she had come rather late today. The girl, in turn, didn't answer and immediately ran to hug her. Melody was shocked and wondered what had happened to her. After that, the little one ran to the bed and immediately covered her head, and it was audible that she was crying. The heroine wondered if her mother had done something to her. She didn't understand what could have happened or what to do in such moments. A moment later, Melody decided that some cool air would surely help the girl. So, she opened the window wide and told Loretta to look. It turned out the wind and rain had made all the leaves fall outside. But at that very moment, the main character noticed how the little girl got very frightened and started crying even more. The girl was alarmed and asked if she should close the window. Her interlocutor didn't answer, so she closed it and said she had done it. Then the heroine began to wonder why Loretta had reacted like that to the open window. Suddenly, she remembered her mother's words. The woman, upon arriving, had said she was lucky today because, on her way from the auction, she came across an overturned carriage. As a result, it turned out that it was raining that day. So, the girl thought Loretta was scared because of those circumstances. Then the main character asked her interlocutor if she was very scared. She said that she herself was very afraid of thunder and lightning and covered her ears with her hands. After all, she didn't even know what had happened in her past life, but she thought that if you covered your ears, you wouldn't hear anything at all. She said it really helped. This attracted Loretta's attention, and she emerged from under the blanket, though her face was very tear-stained. The main character approached the girl and took her hands. Then she said that's why she should do the same as her. At that moment, she took the girl's small hands and pressed them to her ears. After a while, Melody asked if that was better. Surely, it shouldn't be as loud now. But Loretta, in turn, said she could still hear everything. The heroine asked if she was serious. After that, the girls went to bed together to sleep. The heroine addressed Loretta, who asked what she wanted. Melody said everything would be fine because the first chapter was really very short. Her interlocutor asked in surprise, "What first chapter?" The heroine thought she had said something wrong. Then she told her interlocutor that Loretta would become happy very soon. That's why she shouldn't be afraid of anything and should just fall asleep peacefully. One day, the Duke was in his study, attending to business. He was looking over some documents when suddenly someone knocked and entered his room. A subordinate immediately addressed him and said they had found the person he had ordered them to search for. He added that the area where they found her was quite remote. The Duke immediately stood up, postponing all his affairs. He also threw on his outer garment and told his subordinates to prepare the horses because he was leaving for there right now. The next day, Loretta was sitting and drawing a picture. After finishing, she showed it to the main character. She had drawn Melody with her and signed the drawing with her name. The main character smiled, looked at it, and joyfully said it was just beautiful. After that, she told her new friend that for this drawing, she would give her a bun. The little one was happy and just laughed. Then she said that Loretta was really so happy next to Melody. After that, the heroine turned to her and noted that they still needed to learn letters and then play. Her interlocutor happily agreed and said Loretta would be the sister. The girl immediately thought, did the little one want her to be younger? Meanwhile, Melody thought she needed to understand what was bothering the girl. Then she asked her who would be the mother then. She asked in surprise, the mother? After all, Loretta didn't know much about all that. And the main character asked in surprise what she meant. She thought the novel never mentioned that Loretta had lost memories of her mother. Suddenly, the girl turned to Melody and asked how to count the letters under the picture. The girl said she would look and declared that it read house. The little one said enthusiastically that it was such a beautiful house. Melody noted that it really was, and it was a great place to hide. Then she added with a smile that Loretta would soon return to her beautiful home. The little one asked in surprise if she would really go home. The heroine said yes, to the place where the girl used to live. Loretta asked if her interlocutor would come with her. The main character didn't expect to hear this question and tensed up a little. Then, hesitating, she said that she was already home. The girl asked in surprise what she meant. Then tears welled up in her eyes, and she asked if Melody and Loretta would have to part. At that, the heroine thought that, of course, she was the villainess's daughter. So, she told the little one that they had different homes, and such things really happened. Loretta immediately stood up and started crying. She said that if Melody wasn't there, who would cover her ears in that terrible carriage? The girl immediately asked, "What carriage?" and asked her to stop crying. The mother heard the child's crying and burst into their room. She asked her daughter if she couldn't shut her up. It turned out the girl had grown big, but couldn't do anything and only ate her food. Then she switched to the little one and said she would regret it if she made any more noise. Immediately after yelling at them, she turned around and started to leave. As a final remark, she said there wasn't a day of peace in this house. The main character just looked at her departing mother and said nothing. Then she turned her gaze to the girl and asked Loretta if she was okay. The little one said that if Loretta and Melody had different homes, she didn't want to be there at all. Hearing this, the heroine just hugged the girl, because she was sad and could do nothing. After that, a little time passed, and it was early autumn. A woman burst into the room where the girls were and addressed Melody. She told her that Mommy had come with wonderful news. Then she pointed her hand at the little girl and said that this girl was very lucky. Loretta asked if she was really lucky. The woman laughed loudly and called the girl a sack of money, or rather, a bag of gold coins. After that, she told her daughter to be much more careful. This was because if this girl caught a cold, they would refuse to take her. The little one heard the whole conversation and wondered what refuse to take her meant. The mother asked her daughter why she wasn't answering. She asked if she had become completely stupid lately. Melody, in turn, was scooping hot food into a bowl. Then she told her mother she wasn't deaf. This angered the woman, and she asked if the girl had forgotten who she was talking to. After that, she approached her and asked how she dared speak to her like that. At the same time, she grabbed her shoulder to turn her around. But suddenly, the girl touched the bowl of hot food and spilled it on herself. So it happened that the hot food spilled and caused a burn on the girl's leg. Loretta noticed this and immediately asked if Melody was okay. Then she tried to approach her, and the heroine told the little one to be much more careful. At that very moment, Loretta slipped on the hot food and fell immediately. The heroine was frightened and immediately ran to the girl. A wound was clearly visible on her leg. Melody was in shock and said her knees were all bloody. The mother, who was in the room, saw the whole situation. She said her daughter was so stupid. Then she asked why she was just sitting there. She needed to go and call a doctor immediately. After all, if this little one got scars, she would tear her to pieces. The main character immediately started running to call the doctor, as he lived quite far away. Outside, a heavy, pouring rain continued, and it was very cold. But Melody kept running desperately to call the doctor. Thoughts crossed her mind. Wouldn't Loretta's mother scold her? She also thought that if she got a scar, the strict Duke might punish her for it, or she might have problems in the future. The girl kept running through the puddles when suddenly she caught her injured foot on a stone and fell immediately. She found herself on the wet, muddy ground, and the rain kept pouring. Melody began to get up slowly and thought that if only she hadn't let the little one get so close, everything would be different. It would have been fine if her evil mother hadn't answered her. Now the main character's head was filled with thoughts that all this happened only because of her. So, she sat on her knees for a while, looking up and thinking about the whole situation. But after a while, dirty and wounded, she still got to her feet. All because she thought there was no time for this. She must not let Loretta be unhappy. The heroine looked ahead and thought that along this road, she could quickly get to Miss Marlene's house. But it turned out she still needed to hurry. At that very time, the Duke's carriage was passing on a nearby road. The carriage driver heard the Duke doing something and asked him what happened. He told him he thought he saw a child on the path. The young man smiled at this and asked if anyone could be walking in such a downpour. He added that people told the truth, that you could see anything in this forest. At the same time, he told the Duke they didn't have much road left and would soon reach that very house. The man continued to stare intently in the direction where he had glimpsed the child's silhouette. At that very time, the doctor the main character was heading for was sitting by candlelight, writing something down. But suddenly, the woman heard someone knocking on her door so late. After that, Miss Marlene immediately got up and went to the door with her candle. She asked who was there. The heroine said it was Melody who had come to her. Literally immediately, the doctor opened the door and looked to see who was there. The sight that met her eyes horrified her, as the girl was all wet, dirty, and clearly badly injured. Miss Marlene immediately brought the girl into the house and began to examine her. She treated her wounds and asked the girl to sit still a little longer. After a while, the heroine said she was really fine, but the woman understood this wasn't true and told her so. After that, the woman noted that she had told her mother that if she got drunk again and beat her child, she would have to deal with the authorities. Melody at that time turned to the miss and asked if she could hurry and go with her to her house. Then she said it was because the person who needed help lived in her house, and she, in turn, had only gotten hurt when she fell on her way to her. Miss Marlene asked if she was talking about the girl her mother had brought home. The heroine said that was right. The woman immediately became alarmed and thought that if the girl was caring for that child, people might think she was involved in slave trading and punish her severely. She was very worried about this. The main character kept saying that it was all her fault. It turned out Loretta got hurt only because she had knocked over the bowl. Suddenly, her interlocutor said she would be back soon. It was because she would go on horseback, and she should stay here and hide well. The girl immediately said that wasn't necessary because Loretta would be very scared without her, and she was afraid of heavy rain. It turned out the girl really needed her. The woman had no choice but to take the main character with her. And so, after some time, they were heading to the girl's home on horseback. At one point, Melody said they had almost arrived and only had a little way to go. Miss Marlene told Melody to calm down a bit. After all, if they rushed now, they would cause trouble. Then she looked ahead and asked what that was. The heroine was surprised and didn't understand what she was saying and doing. Suddenly, the woman asked if the girl saw the carriages near her house. Melody said she did see them. Miss Marlene continued, saying that one of those carriages was a knight's wagon and the second was some aristocrat's carriage. Then she noted that her mother had probably been caught. The girl at that moment realized what had happened, because today was that very rainy day in early autumn. And as she remembered from the plot of the novel, she knew today was the day Loretta returned home. Miss Marlene said she thought they should return to her house now. The girl noted that she would still be in danger if she hid her, but the woman signaled the girl to be much quieter. After all, her mother had committed a crime, and she didn't need to get involved in all this. The main character became very sad at that time, and she thought that only thanks to Miss Marlene had she just avoided severe punishment. But still, her time with Loretta had ended. Now the main character saw the girl being led out of the house, with knights and the Duke nearby. The heroine thought that Loretta would return to a happy life with her family. She would live with good and wealthy people. In the end, the country should be happy for her, but still, her heart ached at the thought of not seeing her again. Suddenly, the guards brought out the girl's mother, who was screaming for them to let her go immediately. Then the subordinates asked the Duke if they should send her to the central dungeon. The man said that was exactly what needed to be done. Miss Marlene immediately understood it was becoming dangerous here, and they needed to return home. Then she turned her horse towards home and said it was getting cooler, so they needed to go back. The main character only took a last look towards the house, feeling sad. After that, a short time passed, and the main character sat sadly at the table. Miss Marlene prepared food and served it in a bowl for the girl to eat. She said she was very glad the girl hadn't gotten sick. Then she said she had been very worried about her yesterday, thinking she might faint from the situation. Suddenly, the heroine heard what sounded like her friend calling her name from outside the window. Then she looked out the window and thought, was Loretta calling her? But a moment later, she realized no one was there. At that time, Miss Marlene approached the girl and put a hand on her shoulder. She told the girl she had thought of something. She wanted the girl to live with her for a while, and she asked why she didn't study medicine instead of her son. The heroine asked if she could really do that. The woman said she remembered Isaiah said he wanted to become a knight and then left immediately. It turned out they had a room, and if the girl stayed, it would be easier for her to look after her. After all, that was much better than living alone in that empty house. The girl immediately thought that this woman's son was a bad person. He had such a wonderful mother, and he had acted like that. Miss Marlene said that if the girl didn't like it, she didn't have to do it. Immediately, the heroine interrupted her and said she liked it very much. She expressed immense gratitude for the woman caring for her so much. Her interlocutor said she didn't need to do that, as she was actually a very strict doctor. Then the main character asked if the woman minded if she thought about it a little. After this conversation, the girl ate and immediately left the house. Then she went to her house to see what had happened. She thought she couldn't find her clothes, and her mother had probably taken all the money when she saw the guards. The heroine also thought her mother was clearly drunk when the knights came for her. It turned out she wouldn't get away with her crimes now. Then she wondered what she should do in this difficult situation. At that moment, she saw her friends drawing before her eyes. She became very sad again and thought she would never see that little one again. So it turned out she hadn't even said a proper goodbye and should have warned her about future dangers. From sadness and grief, the main character immediately began to cry bitterly. She thought she had been blinded by their happy moments and had only hurt the girl. She really wanted to hear her voice at least one more time. After her thoughts, the girl heard someone walking in the house where she was. Then she heard someone shout, "Stop!" So, she didn't understand what was happening and immediately turned her head towards the exit. What she saw behind her shocked her. At that moment, Loretta was running towards her and immediately hugged her tightly. The main character didn't expect this turn of events, nor did she expect to see her friend in this house again. The little one also had tears in her eyes and immediately looked up and addressed the girl. She asked who had made Melody cry because Loretta would beat them up. The main character didn't understand what was happening at all now. Loretta then told little Melody to stop crying right now. After that, she hugged the main character tightly, and they remained in that position. The girl thought that when Loretta was near, she felt very warm in those moments. Then the girl asked if it was really her friend. The little one said it was, and Loretta was really here. Then the heroine wanted to ask how she had ended up here, but suddenly a hiccup interrupted her. The girl thought she had been crying and laughing, and now she had hiccups too. The little one noticed something was wrong with her friend and asked if she was okay. At that very moment, another man entered the room they were in. The heroine said she was fine, but suddenly the man handed her a flask of water and said it was water and she should drink. He also noted that the girl must be the daughter of that slave trader woman. Melody immediately looked at this man and realized she knew him. After all, as she remembered from the novel's plot, he was Loretta's father and the Duke in this world's kingdom. It also turned out his name was Wayne Baldwin. Then the man noted that it seemed her hiccups had passed. The main character, in turn, immediately bowed to the man and begged the Duke for forgiveness. He asked what she was apologizing for. The girl said she was apologizing for her mother and for what she had done to his daughter, as she had committed a crime. The man said that was true, and she would face deserved punishment for it. At the same time, he told the girl not to worry, as he would send someone for her on the day of the trial. The heroine at that time thought that if she hadn't come home, this whole mess wouldn't have happened either. After that, the girl asked how she would be punished. Then the Duke asked if she was the one who had suggested her mother take up slave trading. The girl said, of course, she hadn't done that. The man noted that her mother had said she was just feeding some girl. The main character wanted to say something else but didn't have time. The man continued speaking. He said it turned out the trial would be held without publicity, and there would be no guards, but the proceedings would be serious. After that, he told the girl to follow him. It turned out he would take her to the Capitol Temple's shelter, as it was a good place supported by aristocrats. Melody was shocked by this and thought it was probably all because she had taken care of Loretta. But she still understood that if she agreed to this, she wouldn't be able to be with her friend anymore. At that moment, the little one addressed the girl. She asked if Loretta and Melody would still have different homes. The heroine immediately went to the girl and spoke to her. At the same time, she remembered the moments she had experienced with her friend. She was very sad and thought that Melody really loved Loretta very much. Suddenly, the little one asked her if she loved her. The heroine gently took her friend's hand and said that of course she did. Melody loved Loretta very much. The girl was very happy and said that Loretta and Melody really loved each other. After that, she addressed the gentleman. She told him he was so silly and the Duke was just a happy little lump. The man was surprised and asked what happy little lump meant. At that moment, the main character explained to him that her mother had said a happy little lump was a sack of money. The Duke said he understood then. The little one at that time began to speak freely, saying that yesterday Loretta had cried without Melody and had been very scared. It also turned out that Melody had cried because she wasn't here. Then she said that Melody was still just a little one, and it was okay for her to cry. After that, the little one turned around and said she would go with her. The man standing with them in the room and hearing all this was a little shocked. He thought the child's first request had been to bring the criminal's daughter to the Capitol. The little one stood with a pleased smirk and looked at her friend. She thought the Duke definitely wouldn't refuse Loretta's request. The Duke, in turn, stood and continued to ponder the whole situation. He thought all this was happening because of the incident yesterday. He remembered how the girl had cried and said she really wanted Melody, and no one could calm her down. After brief reflection, the man turned his gaze to the main character and asked what she thought. The girl looked at him with a questioning gaze and wondered what she really thought. At the same time, she looked at her friend and thought that if she studied medicine with Miss Marlene and became a doctor, she could become a good person, unlike her mother. After all, she had avoided punishment, all thanks to knowing her fate from the novel. It also turned out she knew the future of this child standing before her. All the difficulties and happy moments this girl would experience were literally engraved in her memory. And she knew all this because she perfectly remembered the plot of the novel she had read. So now the main character thought that perhaps she should try to give Loretta a better future. After all, in this world, something had appeared that only she could handle. Immediately after her thoughts, the girl turned to the Duke and said she would go with Loretta. Hearing this, the little one was very joyful about what her friend had said. Miss Marlene stood on the porch of her house, worrying while waiting for the main character to appear. Suddenly, she saw the girl running towards her house at great speed. After they met again, the main character told the woman what had happened to her. She also told her about her future, as she was leaving for the capital with the Duke and her new friend. The woman packed a little food for the girl for the journey. She said she couldn't believe the girl was going to the capital. It was a bit dangerous there now because of the whole situation. It would be fine with some other noble, but not the Duke. The main character said she knew all that. She was sure that in the capital, most were on his side. Miss Marlene said it seemed she had already made her decision. The girl smiled at her, apologized, and thanked her for giving her Isaiah's room. The woman said she probably shouldn't have given the lady, who was afraid of sweat, Isaiah's room. The girl told her that wasn't true, as it had been quite comfortable for her there. Then her interlocutor patted the main character on the head and gave her some more remedies. She said that if things got too hard in the capital, she could always return to her, because everyone needed a home. The girl headed for the exit, and the woman said as a final remark that she had a request for Melody. If she met her son in the capital, she shouldn't forget to give him the honey pie. After that, the main character went out and bowed to the woman, saying goodbye to her. Immediately after that, she ran to the carriage where her friend and the Duke were waiting. Finally, Miss Marlene wished little Melody God's blessing on her journey. At that very time in the capital, some young men were sitting at a table eating. One of them complained if they were being fed the same thing again. It turned out they had been given dried meat for lunch for the 4th day in a row. Then the young man said sadly that if he had known it would be like this, would he have become a knight? Another of his interlocutors noted that this was too much even for a simple knight. Suddenly, the first young man asked Isaiah if he was still eating it. Suddenly, the red-headed young man curled up, and his interlocutor asked what was wrong. Had the dried meat gone bad? Isaiah said that wasn't it, but his ear was itching again. He didn't understand who could be talking about him right now. After the main character set off for the capital, she fell asleep in the carriage. After some time on the road, the heroine woke up, and the Duke saw this. He asked if she was awake. Melody immediately apologized and noted that she had indeed fallen asleep. The man said it was fine, as they were almost there. He also said it seemed to him the girl was very fond of Loretta. At that time, the little one was sleeping on the heroine's lap, and she noticed this. She told the man she was very happy about it. After a few moments, the main character addressed the Duke again. She told him importantly that she wasn't sure if she had mentioned it, but it seemed Loretta had lost her memory. It turned out that when she asked her what had happened before they met, she said she knew nothing, not even about her own mother, meaning the madam. In the end, it turned out she was afraid of rain, meaning the incident had left a scar on her memory. The girl didn't question her further, afraid she would panic severely. The Duke said he thought she just needed more time. Then he noted that her name was Melody, and it turned out he was deeply indebted to her. The girl immediately said it must have been very hard for him, as he was her father. The man said he wasn't sure about that. Then he sighed sadly and said he wasn't sure if this girl was his daughter. Suddenly, The heroine exclaimed that Loretta was definitely his daughter, as she looked so much like him. He thought that was very interesting, as anyone in her position would say the same now. But the heroine kept saying that she not only looked like him, but also had the same air of nobility as the Duke. The heroine asked, didn't he feel happy watching his own daughter sleep? The man asked in surprise if such a thing could really make someone happy. At that moment, the girl, knowing the novel's plot, thought he should accept it, as soon he would, without realizing it, become part of her fandom. As their carriage was approaching the capital, knights appeared and addressed the Duke. One of the knights said that His Majesty the Emperor was urgently looking for him. The Duke noted that he had indeed been gone for a month, so that was hardly surprising. Then he said these two should go on without him, as he had urgent business. The two girls reached the place where they were to live and looked at it joyfully. The house they had arrived at looked very aristocratic and solid. On the threshold of this house, the girls were awaited by the butler and the housekeeper. Behind them stood a whole crowd of maids lined up in 2 rows. The man immediately bowed to the girls and said the Duke had told him everything. Then he addressed dear Lady Loretta and said his name was Higgins, and he was the butler of this house. The woman standing nearby also introduced herself, saying her name was Madame Higgins, and she was the housekeeper. After that, the butler offered his hand to the little one and said he would escort Lady Loretta into the mansion. She was frightened and asked her friend if they would be together. The girl said not to worry, as she would come to her later. Then they left, and the butler told the little one she shouldn't worry, as it was very close by. The heroine looked at her and thought she was such a cutie. Suddenly, that very woman, the housekeeper, addressed her. She called her a dirty girl and told her to go downstairs, as what was she standing and waiting for? After that, a short time passed, and the main character was in the bath. It looked quite luxurious, and the girl wondered if she could really use the bathtub. Next to her was the housekeeper, who started shouting that she had stopped and was just standing there. Then she asked if she wanted to get sick, as she needed to get in quickly. The girl said she would do so immediately. After that, she put her hand in to feel how hot the water was. It was so hot that the girl immediately pulled it out and thought it was just awful. Then she took a bucket and thought she needed to add some cold water. The woman noticed this and asked what she was doing. The heroine thought with sadness and surprise, had she done something wrong? The housekeeper kept shouting that she should have said the water was hot. She asked how a girl with such skinny legs as hers could lift such heavy things. After that, she added cold water and said it should be fine now, so she should get in. The main character obeyed her and got into the bath, as the water was indeed okay. Then she splashed in the water and wondered if she could really use all this. Miss Higgins looked at the girl and told her to sit in the warm bath for a while. The girl, in turn, was joyful and thought it had been so long since she had bathed in warm water. After a while, the housekeeper approached the girl again. She said she needed to look at her back, as she thought she should add herbs because she smelled bad. The girl asked in surprise, "What herbs?" Then she thanked the madam. The woman said the girl looked as if she had just been born, but was trying to act like an adult. That's why she asked her to call her Granny. The main character asked how she dared call her Granny, but the woman just asked her to sit still and not fidget. After some time, Melody and Loretta met again. The little one looked at her friend and was enchanted by her appearance. The heroine asked how she looked, as Granny had given her pajamas that looked like a dress. The little one said she was the most beautiful person in the world. Then the girl asked Loretta about her dinner. She said this because she had never eaten so much meat in her life. Her interlocutor noted that it was true, the meat had been very tasty. After that, Melody told her friend it was time for bed, and tomorrow they would go for a walk in the garden. The little one asked if she had to go to her room. She looked very sleepy and even asked if she could stay with her. The main character covered her interlocutor with a blanket and told her not to worry and just sleep. After all, Granny had recently said she could sleep with her. Then the girl mentally thanked Loretta for staying with her. Morning came, and suddenly someone entered the room where the girls were. The heroine was lying on the other side of the bed with her head away from the door. She thought it seemed Granny had come, and she needed to get up. But suddenly, she heard someone say the girl was nasty. This person turned out to be a boy who was looking at Loretta and saying she was nasty and scrawny. He also wondered if she was really a member of the Baldwin family. He also didn't understand why she was sleeping here and not in her other room. Then he said he rarely wanted to do the morning greeting, but since she still hadn't woken up, he could do it. The main character wasn't asleep and heard everything this boy said. He didn't notice she was awake. Melody remembered the novel's plot and thought this was probably that very second brother of Loretta's, named Ronnie Baldwin. Ronnie looked around the room a bit more and looked at his own sister. Then he came closer to her and thought perhaps he should pinch her to wake her up. Then he said she was nasty and should get up. But the moment he tried to touch her cheek, the main character rose and grabbed his hand. Then she signaled the boy to be quiet, and he was shocked by what had just happened. The shocked boy immediately pulled his hand away. He didn't understand what to do or what had happened. So, confused, he lost his balance and immediately stumbled backward. Because of this, he couldn't keep his balance and immediately fell to the floor. At that very moment, the boy wondered where this girl had come from. Then he raised his eyes to see who she was. The main character was a little frightened at that time and reached out her hand to help the boy up. She asked fearfully if he was okay at all. Ronnie didn't answer and immediately stood up. It was clear he was quite angry. Then he said the girl was just as much of a liar for getting here. The girl asked in surprise what he was talking about, as she didn't understand. The boy shouted at her to go back where she came from and called her a liar. Then he headed towards the exit and said he couldn't believe people came here and hurt his father. The girl didn't have time to say anything to him and only watched him leave and slam the door behind him. She thought it seemed he didn't like her at all. She just couldn't have imagined they wouldn't get along right from the start. All these sounds woke Loretta and she immediately sat up. The girl asked Melody what had happened. The heroine, in turn, leaned towards her and asked how her lady had slept. The girl asked what she was saying, as it sounded so strange, she didn't like it. The heroine noted that it was correct, as now she was indeed her lady. She said her name was just Loretta, not any lady. Some time after that, the Duke and the butler were strolling around the estate grounds. Wayne asked if what he was holding were letters from the elders. His interlocutor said that was indeed so. Suddenly, someone addressed the Duke, and he immediately turned his head to see who it was. It was Loretta, who said she wanted to be as big as he was. The man asked in surprise if that was so. After that, he gestured for the butler to leave and started talking with the girl. He asked the little one if she had liked her breakfast. The girl said with a smile on her face that it had indeed been good. Then, still smiling, the girl said that when she grew up, she would become just as big as he was. The Duke didn't understand why she was saying this but agreed with it. Suddenly, maids appeared, calling for the young lady. One of them said she hadn't finished the girl's hairstyle, so they needed to go back. The little one turned around and wondered if these were her sisters. When the maids approached them, they immediately apologized to the Duke. The man told them it was cold outside, so they should put a coat on the girl. Then the maids curtsied to him and began to leave. So, one of them asked the young lady not to run away from them anymore. The Duke, in turn, continued to look at the letters in his hands. After some time, he returned to the mansion and was walking with the butler. He told him he thought they should remove all sharp objects, as it could be slippery here, and children love to run. His interlocutor said it would be done. Then Wayne asked if there had been any response from the temple yet. The butler apologized and said there had been a response, but they said the high priest was very busy for now. Hearing this, the Duke said it seemed it was time to ask the high priest for a favor. It turned out that in the worst case, they could simply increase the donation amount, as the temple asked. Then he headed up the stairs and noted that he needed to get back to work. Suddenly, the butler stopped him. The man turned to him, and he asked if he wouldn't like to see Lady Loretta. After all, that Miss Melody was reading her a fairy tale right now. The Duke said he needed to work, so he asked him to go in his place. Higgins said he understood. At that time, one of the maids told her interlocutor, Patty, that she wouldn't be going into the city for some time. The girl asked why that was. Then she said to Alta that they had always agreed to wear the Duke's worker badges, but she said this in a whisper. Her interlocutor noted that of course that was true. Then she said, did she know what the girl working for the Stewarts had told her? And so she remembered what that girl had said. She had asked if she worked for the Baldwins. She was also curious what it was like to serve parentless children. Alta said that's how it was. Patty asked if it was really like that. No wonder, since they didn't even know if she was the Duke's daughter. From this, it followed that the Duke hadn't even said one kind word to her. Then she said that it wasn't really their business anyway. At that moment, her interlocutor asked, but could they really just leave it at that? After some time, the table before Loretta was set. On it was a huge number of desserts, bright with colors and looking very tasty. This immediately attracted the little one's attention, and she asked if she could eat all of it. The maids were near the girl, and Alta said that of course she could eat it, as it was all hers. The girl was very happy and said she would eat well. After that, Alta approached Lady Loretta and immediately addressed her. She asked what she wanted. The maid asked, wasn't she curious about whether she was really the Duke's daughter or not? Suddenly, a girl addressed Patty and wanted to ask what she was talking about, but she stopped her. The other maid kept asking the girl if she didn't know either. The girl said she did know. Alta asked how she could possibly know. She asked who had told her such a thing, and was it the priest who wore white clothes? The girl shook her head, saying that wasn't it, and said Melody had said so. The maids started discussing who Melody was, and the interlocutor said it was that girl who had been brought with the young lady. Then one of the maids told the young lady that no one would believe that. After all, only a priest from the temple could recognize her as the Duke's daughter. The girl asked what priest and why was he needed. But her interlocutor added that wasn't all. After all, to be accepted, she also needed to behave well and sweetly. Then she said that the Duke's daughter could use his room on the second floor, and then, dreaming, added that she wished she could have that too. A moment later, she realized she had said too much, but Loretta didn't notice. At that moment, the girl finished some food and said she wanted more of it. Alta addressed her and asked what would happen if Miss Melody were in danger. After all, it turned out that if the girl couldn't prove to the priest that she was the Duke's daughter, Melody would be sent to the dungeon with bad people. The little one was frightened and asked if they could really do that to Melody. That evening, the main character was brushing the girl's hair, and she spoke to her. The little one told Melody she wanted to ask her something. She asked if her friend could teach her how to do cute things. The heroine was surprised and asked if she needed cute things. She thought for a while, then told the little one to take a deep, deep breath first. Loretta obeyed her and did everything she said. Then Melody told her to exhale. She noted that she had done excellently and was just great. The little one asked if the Duke would like her if she just breathed like that. The girl said she was pretty even when just breathing. After that, she asked why she wanted the Duke to like her. Her interlocutor said that today the maid Alta had told her something. Then the girl relayed the information that if she didn't prove she belonged to the Duke, they would both be thrown out and Melody would be put in the dungeon. The heroine listened to all this and said, so that's how it was. The little one hugged her friend tightly and said with tears in her eyes that she had to be recognized as the Duke's daughter so she wouldn't be taken away. So, she would never let that happen. Then she asked what she should do in this situation. After all, it seemed she wanted to become much closer to the kind Duke. The heroine asked what she was talking about, what kind Duke. At that very time at night, the butler was walking through the building's corridor with a lantern. Suddenly, he noticed the master and addressed him. He told the man he was surprised not to find him in his study, as he hadn't said he was leaving. The Duke also looked at him and said he wanted to ask him something too. The main character had just asked her friend if he was kind. The little one said that of course he was. After all, he had allowed her friend to come with her, so she even liked him a little. And she asked if she liked him. Melody said she had been afraid to ask him, as she hadn't thought he would allow it. But in the end, Granny had told her that all the glass decorations had been removed from the mansion because the Duke didn't want them to get hurt. Loretta asked if that was really true. The heroine, in turn, kept talking and said that's why she really liked him too. The girls looked at each other and then started smiling. At that same time, the Duke, in another part of the mansion, was wondering if children liked sky blue color. After that, a short time passed, and the girls stood in shock at the gifts on the table. These were gifts from the Duke in gratitude for taking care of the garden. The main character looked at this and thought that even though she had spent much more time in the garden than expected, she still couldn't believe the Duke had personally sent them gifts. Loretta was very joyful at that time and immediately put on the hat that had been given. With a joyful smile, she exclaimed that she would wear it to go to the garden. Then the little one, wearing the hat, ran around the table, while the main character sat nearby on a chair, examining her gift. The butler said that indeed the young mistress could wear it and go to the garden after eating. Also, it turned out they could play there as long as they wished. The heroine, in turn, continued to sit calmly and examine the gift. Then she said she would first like to go and thank the Duke for this wonderful gift. The butler said that Miss Melody indeed had excellent manners. The housekeeper stood nearby and said the Duke would return quite late tonight. The butler noted that even though that was the case, he could convey to the Duke that Miss Melody was very grateful for the gift. The heroine immediately thanked him for that. Then the man said the Duke would be very pleased to know the girl was wearing his gift. After that, the heroine put the hat on herself and asked if it suited her. The butler said joyfully that the hat really looked wonderful on Miss Melody. Then he asked what the madam standing nearby thought about it. She said she looked like a sheep with an expensive hat put on her. At that time, maids were walking along the street, discussing something with each other. Patty said she hadn't seen boxes with such luxurious things in a long time. Alta, in turn, noted that Lady Loretta was truly very valued here. Then her interlocutor said that if she really confirmed she was the Duke's daughter, would the woman go to the second floor or not? Alta said she was smart enough for everything to go smoothly. After all, it turned out underestimating her was very foolish. Suddenly, Loretta appeared, greeting the maids, but they hadn't expected to see her here at all. They were also hiding the gift boxes from the girl. Alta said it seemed the young lady was already tired, and she asked if she wanted the maid to bring her a cookie. The girl smiled and said she wanted one, and one for Melody too. After a while, the maid did so. The girl was drinking some liquid, and she addressed her and asked if she didn't think the Duke had become very kind to her. The little one asked what she was talking about now. After all, he had always been so kind to her. But Alta kept asking since when had the Duke started behaving like this. After all, it turned out that, as she had said, he had sent her that cute hat because she was cute. The little one asked if that was the only reason. Then the maid noted who gave luxurious gifts to strangers without any reason. The little one said she wasn't a stranger, as she was his daughter, and her name was Loretta. Alta asked if the young lady had forgotten everything again. After all, it turned out she had already told her that she wasn't considered his daughter until the priest confirmed she was the Duke's daughter. After that, she leaned in and asked if the girl remembered she had told her to be pleasant and sweet with the Duke. It turned out that was the only way she could go to the temple and get that confirmation. Patty told her colleague that she had said enough. Her interlocutor said it was really obvious that it was thanks to her the young lady had received the gift. Then she asked the young lady if she was saying it correctly. The little one, in turn, stood and didn't answer them. She was looking around. Suddenly, she noticed someone and immediately ran there. The maids didn't understand what was happening. She shouted, "Granny." The maids looked ahead and saw the housekeeper there. The girl ran up to her and called her to come with her. Alta noticed the woman and was worried because Madame Higgins was standing right in front of her. Loretta told the woman that Melody had said if she had any problems, she could talk to the Duke, the butler, or Granny. So, she was asking Granny if she knew who had given her the hat. It seemed she was very interested. It seemed she should thank them for it. She was only wondering because the maid had said she should thank her, but she wasn't sure why. After a while, the woman was walking along the mansion's corridor, and the dismissed Alta was running after her. The girl tried to justify herself and said she thought the young lady was too young and had expressed herself incorrectly. The little one, in turn, heard all her words and said that wasn't true, as she had definitely said it correctly. It turned out she spoke well because Melody had praised her. But she became very sad because Alta had said Melody should be in jail. At that time, the maid's face fell, and the housekeeper looked at her angrily. Alta tried to justify herself and said she had never said such a thing. The girl said that she had indeed told her that yesterday in the garden. She also said she wasn't the Duke's daughter until the priest confirmed it. And also, it turned out she had said she had to be polite and sweet with the Duke for him to accept her, and that the two of them had been in her room on the second floor, and she had wanted to add something else. The maid immediately addressed the young lady and asked how she dared say such things and make things up. The housekeeper didn't say a word and immediately directed her hand towards the maid. In that same second, she tore off the badge that belonged to her. The girl realized this was a very bad sign and didn't know what to do in this situation. She looked at the woman with fear and immediately began to beg for mercy. At that very moment, she fell to her knees before her and screamed that she was very sorry about it. It turned out she had acted very badly and repented for it all. Then Alta turned towards the girl and asked the young lady how she could treat her like this. Then she screamed at the girl that she didn't even understand what she had to go through to get here. After that, she immediately stood up and screamed that it was all this little brat's fault. At that very moment, she swung her hand at her, wanting to hit her immediately. But at that very moment, Melody appeared in front of the little one, shielding her with her own body and shouting that Alta must not lay a hand on the young lady. After what happened, a short time passed, and the main character sat with Loretta at the table. At that time, a huge cake stood before them, and the servants, as well as the butler and housekeeper, were lined up. The man said that one of their maids had acted badly towards the young lady instead of treating her with respect. The woman noted that this maid had been fired immediately. She said she was very sorry, as before hiring her, she should have understood what kind of person she was. Loretta at that time asked Granny if she could eat this carrot cake. The woman hadn't expected such a question and said that of course she could. The main character said that in that case, wouldn't they like to join them and eat it together? At that time, the little one joined in and said they really needed to eat it together. And it turned out that if she and Melody ate it alone, their stomachs would hurt. The heroine at that same time said it was really very tasty. The housekeeper and butler glanced at each other. After that, they accepted the girl's offer and sat down with them to eat. One of the maids said she would cut a piece for everyone. The man said his wife truly had golden hands, and she became embarrassed and told him to calm down. Loretta took a piece of cake and handed it to one of the maids. At the same time, she told the girl to take a piece of cake. This was strange for her, but she still thanked the girl for it. At that time, some man was passing by and looked at what was happening at their table. He immediately said it seemed to him the mansion was becoming a haven for all sorts of riffraff. Some time after that, the butler was in the Duke's study. He said he was very sorry to bother him with such a matter. Wayne asked what had happened with the fired maid. His interlocutor said measures were now being taken so she couldn't get a job anywhere else. He also noted that her personal file would be sent to capital houses. Suddenly, the Duke stopped him and said that shouldn't be done. It turned out he should send her file to the mansions closer by. He also needed to put his seal on the letters so they would arrive faster. The butler said he would take care of it immediately. Then Wayne asked how the children were. His interlocutor said the girls had only recently returned from a walk. Then he apologized and noted that the young lady and Miss Melody had held a small tea party after the walk. The Duke, in turn, noted that he had thought it was a party, not a simple tea party. After all, the laughter had reached all the way here. His interlocutor apologized again for this. Then Wayne started talking about the hats, and the man asked what he meant. But then there was a knock on the door, and the Duke stopped talking about it. The butler immediately paid attention to this and went to open the door to the study they were in. When he opened the door, Melody was standing there, holding the hat in her hands and greeting the butler. The butler announced to the Duke that Miss Melody had come. The girl, in turn, greeted the Duke. Then she said she had come to thank him. It turned out Miss Loretta had fallen asleep, so she had come instead of her. The man asked what she meant by instead of her. The main character told him she was very indebted to him. After all, she would have liked to express her gratitude in a letter, but she couldn't write yet. Then she mentioned the tea party, but the man was probably busy. She added that Lady Loretta was so good at inviting people. It seemed if the Duke had been nearby, he would probably have gone too. Suddenly, the man stood up and approached the girl, and with a cold voice, said he didn't like tea parties. After that, he added that the girl should return to her room. At that time, he noticed the girl's face had darkened. He immediately wondered why she had paled. Was she sick or something like that? The man also said children shouldn't wander around so late. The maid who was near the girl immediately apologized for it. And while she was apologizing, the main character addressed the man. The girl looked at the man before her with a smile on her face and said the hat was very beautiful, so she was very grateful to him for it. It turned out she would keep it all this time. The Duke was a little embarrassed and said that was good. Some time later, the main character was in her room before an open window with a book in her hands. The girl thought the wind was indeed getting cooler, and she wasn't given any tasks to do here. Suddenly, she realized she could do something and immediately went there. She went to the kitchen, which was managed by the housekeeper. The woman asked the girl why she was prowling around the kitchen. Melody said she was here only because she wanted to help with something. It turned out her hands were completely bored from not preparing food. The woman looked at what she was doing and immediately shouted if she was daydreaming. The girl asked what she meant by that. The housekeeper said she had been offered to try tasty, fragrant peanuts and asked what her actions would be. The main character asked if it was okay if she tried them. Her interlocutor asked if she was waiting for her to feed her herself. After that, the main character tried them and said with a joyful face that they were very tasty. The woman said it turned out her taste buds were definitely in order. Then she said that was all for today, but she should stay away from the kitchen this week. After all, there was plenty of work here without her. Melody asked if something serious was planned. The woman said 3 elders had arrived. As a result, they needed to arrange a good reception for these grumblers. The main character immediately thought that it seemed before sending Loretta to the temple, the elders had arrived at the mansion. The housekeeper looked at the girl's work and said she was doing quite well now. She also added that she would bring her peanuts, so the girl should go to her room. After all, it turned out that if a child wandered alone around the mansion at such a time, it wouldn't lead to anything good. The heroine obeyed her and said she would do so. It was already quite late, and it turned out the girl was walking through the mansion with a candle. She was curious about these elders. After all, it was unchangeable that Loretta was the Duke's daughter. Suddenly, the girl heard a door open near her. A draft of air rushed towards her and immediately blew out the candle that was lighting her way. Immediately, the main character remembered the housekeeper's words. The woman had told her that if a child wandered alone through the mansion, it certainly wouldn't lead to anything good. And she wondered why the woman hadn't told her about this before. Suddenly, in the darkness, the girl felt someone touch her from behind and immediately became alert. Then she turned around and was about to scream, but suddenly stopped. She saw a young man and asked if it was young Master Ronnie. After a while, they went together to the room, and the young man said he had deigned to come to her himself, and it turned out she hadn't even prepared tea for him. The main character said it was because it was too late. At the same time, she asked if he wanted a peanut, as Granny had given them to her. The young man was surprised and asked if she thought he was still a little child. Then the girl said she would like to eat alone if he didn't mind. The young man, in turn, sat with a casual look and gazed away. Melody asked why he had come then. Ronnie asked if his interlocutor had heard the latest news. The girl asked what he was talking about. The young man said he was talking about the guests. The main character asked if he was talking about the elders who had come to the Duke. Hearing this, the boy was very surprised and asked how she knew about it all. The girl asked with a casual look if he had come only to tell her about that. Then the young man told her to come closer to him. The girl asked what nonsense he was talking, but he continued, telling her to give him her ear. The heroine moved closer and asked what he wanted. The young man began to whisper quietly in her ear that she should be careful with the elders. After all, it turned out these people didn't particularly like them. That's why they might try to get rid of her. At that very time, one of these elders was passing by the room they were in. The girl couldn't believe her ears and thought, was young Master Ronnie, who had been quite cruel in the original story, now worried about Loretta? After all, from what she remembered of the original novel, the young man always said he was sure the girl would be kicked out soon. Then the heroine said she would definitely pass this information to her. The boy asked what nonsense she was talking. The girl continued, saying she was sure Loretta already knew how he worried about her. Ronnie immediately shouted if she had gone crazy. The girl didn't quite understand what had happened and asked if it turned out he was worried not about Lady Loretta, but about her. The boy didn't say anything at that time, as he turned away because he had blushed deeply. The main character told the young master she was very sorry about the situation. It turned out she was very glad he worried about Loretta, and she wouldn't joke like that anymore. The young man said what impudence she had now. After all, he was absolutely sure she would be kicked out sooner or later. Then he looked at the girl and said she wouldn't change anything by making such a pitiful face. It was obvious the old men hated her the most. Melody said she was just a child who had grown up with her. That's why she didn't think she could attract their attention. After all, it turned out even the young master was completely indifferent to her. The young man immediately asked who was indifferent to her. The girl then asked what he had just said, as she hadn't heard. The young man told her to forget it all and immediately went to the exit. Before closing the door, he shouted that she was also quite ugly. The main character heard all his words and immediately thought that compared to the Duke, the young master was like melted butter. Some time later, a tea party was held with the Duke and the 3 elders who had arrived at the estate. One of the men asked if the Duke knew what was most important to them. After all, it was the preservation of traditions and the protection of the honor of the Baldwin Duchy. Another person asked the Duke how he thought the fact that the Duke was searching for his daughter, based on any guess, would affect the prestige of the family. The gray-haired old man said he hoped he would at least maintain his dignity in the process. The main character and her friend were just starting breakfast at that time. They were very sleepy and barely had the energy to eat, dragging the food slowly. Melody looked at the maids and asked them if it seemed to her they wanted to say something. They, in turn, exclaimed they couldn't keep it to themselves any longer. They also said another gift had arrived for their young lady. The girls were shocked and asked what they had just said. Then they brought the gift and said to open it quickly. Loretta opened it, and the maids were shocked by what was inside. They asked what these lovely green bows were, as it was just a very luxurious color. The woman also said the Duke had probably thought the young lady would shine even brighter with them. The girls, in turn, were happy with the gift and examined it carefully. At that very time, the discussion at the tea party continued. One of the men said even aristocrats had to be very careful. He noted one could assume the girl from the slave trader's house was really the Duke's daughter. But he still couldn't understand what that other girl who came with her was doing here.